listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where we discuss career and industry insights with our peers in marketing.
We're here to talk about it all, like the ups and downs of working in social media,
how to build authentic relationships in the influencer and PR space,
managing a 9-to-5 and a side hustle at the same time,
how to be productive in your life and career without losing your sanity, and more.
Ultimately, we're here to build a community with you because we're all trying to navigate the world of marketing together.
Are you ready? Grab your favorite drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode. Hey, Marketing Happy Hour listeners, you may notice that we have a new logo over here created with the team over at 99 Designs by Vista. 99 Designs by Vista is the global creative platform that makes it easy for you to work with freelance graphic designers from around the world to bring your brand to life through custom, memorable design. From logos to apps and packaging to book covers, 99 Designs is where you can get an incredible design that you'll love. We've partnered with 99 Designs by Vista to provide you with an exclusive discount on your next piece of design work. With our partnership, you can get $20 off your first design contest. From pitch to perfection, 99 Designs will be with you every step of the way, offering all the creative support you need to help your business grow and thrive. Head to 99designs.com/marketing happy hour to learn more or get started on your project today.
Capri, Director of Social for ButcherBox, joins us for a raw conversation about career resentment and the steps you can take to quit if it's time to do so. She also shares how to set boundaries at work and why filling your cup outside of your career helps you show up effectively in your role. I'm so excited for you to hear this week's conversation between Erica and Capri. Make sure to grab your favorite notebook and beverage. It's time to listen in.
Hey Capri, how are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've been following along with you on LinkedIn and all the places for a long time. So I'm really excited to have you here. And we're going to talk about some really exciting things today, revolving a lot around career, which I'm super excited about. But before we dive in, I do have an important question for you that we ask all of our guests. And that is, what is in your glass tonight? This is Marketing Happy Hour after all.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So I have this really gross, collagen probiotic chlorophyll mix because COVID destroyed my gut and I'm still riding that wave.
Oh, I completely know where you're coming from. That happened to me too. And I'm actually getting over a cold right now. I don't know if you can even hear it in my voice, but that's why I just have water and an Ora Bora, which is like a sparkling water, peppermint watermelon. So
Peppermint. Okay.
Good.
Nice.
It's really good. So let's just get started. Let's jump right in. I want to peel back the curtain just a little bit on your career journey this far. Your LinkedIn is sprinkled with some really incredible brands, and I'd just love to hear a little overview of the previous roles you've held, how you've worked your way into your current director of social media position at ButcherBox, and all the things.
Yeah, so I can kind of start from the beginning. I finished school in 2016. I went to Emerson College here in Boston, where I'm based. And almost immediately after, I started working at a big ad agency in the city as an associate strategist. The accounts that I was working on were like not glamorous at all. They were like the Center for Disease Control, like Huntington Bank, not sexy, but I learned a lot. And through that, kind of learned that where I wanted to be was organic social for something that I was like a little bit more interested in.
Yeah.
So I cold applied for this social media editor role at Refinery29, which was in New York. I ended up getting the job, which was crazy. I was so young. I was like 22. Moved to New York, was there for a bit. I'll probably talk about this later, but it was just not the spot for me.
Yeah.
It was not good. Didn't love editorial. So through an old connection from my job at the ad agency, I learned about this opportunity at PUMA, and my connection was in the paid media space, but obviously he worked closely with organic and he helped get me over there. So I moved back to Boston, and that's kind of, I think, where things really took off. So I was at PUMA as a global social manager for a few years. And I liked it, but I got super burnt out. And then this is where things get kind of interesting. A month before COVID lockdowns, I quit my job at PUMA with nothing to do. So I had signed up to do the WOOF program, which, if you're not familiar with it, it stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. So I literally was going to, well, I did quit my job and then was going to move down to rural Texas for like 6 months to go work on a flower farm.
Wow.
And like not have a phone and like live in a cabin. And obviously the timing of that was like so wild, and my program got canceled, but I had already like saved up money to not work and kind of like figure out what I wanted. So I just didn't work, and it was amazing. It was honestly, like, if I can say this, the happiest that I ever was just like kind of getting back to myself. But obviously not sustainable. So around the time that I was like, oh, I need to kind of get back into it, Abercrombie actually reached out to me for this senior social role. Seemed great, loved the team, did that. And then a few months into that, there was a restructure. And that's kind of when I moved into the team head role at A&F for their teen brands. I loved working there. And then after 2 years, ButcherBox reached out about this director role, and it just seemed like a really good step in my career. A lot of tears shed though, loved A&F. But yes, I've been at ButcherBox now for a couple of months and I really, really like it.
Oh, that is so exciting. That journey is just so, I know a lot of people listening to this are probably looking up to you because that's like such a great path that people probably want to go down, all these amazing brands on your resume. But I totally resonate with you with just being so burnt out and just not enjoying, your role, not enjoying really your life because you're always thinking about how you're unhappy at work.
Yes.
So I'm excited to really dive into that. We did talk a little bit before this about what we were going to chat about today. And I just think it's time to get real. Like, I'm so excited. Let's just get into it. What are your thoughts on job and career resentment? You touched on it a little bit. What has kind of been your experience in that area? What do you recommend for someone currently experiencing this? A lot of people go into social media expecting like a fun, easy breezy career, but it can be really emotionally draining and taxing. I've experienced it. I know my co-host Cassie has. Like, pretty much all of my friends that have been involved with social from the time that they got out of college have run into this stagnant time or just like resentment time, or did I make the right choice time? So I'd just love to hear your perspective and how your experiences have kind of shaped your views on that.
Amazing. I love talking about this. I will talk about this until the cows come home. And this will probably be the question that I like spend the most time on. I feel like this is a really taboo subject, right? It's getting less so. But I've been really open about my journey with it for a long time. And I would say the first few years of my career, nobody wanted to hear about it or acknowledge it. Obviously, we know people think working in social is this glamorous, like super fun and easy thing, which is, as I'm sure most of the people listening to this podcast know, very far from the truth, right? My partner has this group of friends from college, and like they're all like biochemists and physicists and professors of economics. Like, they have these jobs that I just cannot relate to. And we were all together once, and one of them was like, okay, so like you write the captions and you make the posts. And like the day prior, I was like crying about not being able to like upload an AI filter to Snapchat or something. And I was like, sure, that's exactly what I do. That will make this conversation a lot easier. And you kind of forget that the average person doesn't know what goes into it. And all that being said, something I wish someone would have told me is that, like, feeling this way, feeling resentful of a career that maybe you wanted or were excited about, is actually completely normal and natural. I find it's often a sign that you're like not getting what you need at work, whether that's like a fair workload or support from your boss or whatever. For a while, I thought I needed to change careers. So I was like, since I'm feeling this way and it doesn't seem like anybody else is, there must be something wrong with me, right? But those feelings honestly became so much more manageable when I landed at Abercrombie, which was like the first job I really enjoyed. And like sometimes it takes a while. I'm 28 years old. I started at Abercrombie right before I turned 26, I think. And like that was the first time that it felt right. Um, and I just remember like so many days, maybe the first like 4 years of my career, waking up and feeling absolutely morose about going into the office. Like it exacerbated depression and anxiety that I already am prone to. And I look back and I see these feelings, right, as a combination of like burnout, like severe burnout, an unsustainable workload, and bosses that just like didn't give a shit about me and didn't give a shit about like what I was dealing with at work. At one of my jobs, I was managing like 6 different Instagram accounts, like plus all of the other social channels, which is
Wow.
like in retrospect, like how could anybody ever think that that's their own fault for like being like, this sucks, you know? Um, and for someone currently experiencing this, to go to the last part of your question, I think you really need to take a step back, right, and evaluate what is missing. So at your core, like, do you enjoy the work? And once I was like, no, I like this, like I could like this if like these other factors changed, you need to think about how to leave. And I always say like I'm a huge fan of quitting if you're not in a good position, right? So like if you really think, would I enjoy this if the company that I was at had different values, or prioritized other things? Once you have your answer, you can go from there. And if you decide you want to stay in the field, dedicate some time every day to researching companies who align more with what you want and align more with your values. Focus on making your life outside of work really rich and fun. And I also just want to say, like, as a last note, sticking something out that makes you miserable so you can say on your resume, oh, I was here for a year, does not matter. Please take it from me. I used to be so embarrassed to admit that I was at Refinery for 6 months. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm like suffering. And I got up and left, and it was like so embarrassing and hard at the time, but like the best decision that I ever made. If you're unhappy, you can leave, like it won't hurt you.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that you said that. I literally went through that exact feeling and just like processing that whole situation not even 6 months ago. So I
Yeah, and
totally
it's
know where you're coming
fine.
from. Yeah. So I do want to just touch on like how you knew when you were, in a good spot to leave. I know it's really hard for someone who is supporting themselves to kind of figure out,
Yes.
okay, do I have enough saved? Like, what do I think I want to do? Like, how do you even go about determining when's a good time to leave and if it's okay, if you're going to be okay for the next however long it takes to fall into your next thing?
Yes.
What advice do you have on that?
So the only time I ever left without a plan, without another job, was when I quit my job at PUMA. And I was so immensely privileged in that, like, I knew I wanted to leave for a very long time, but I was playing the long game because it wasn't completely unsustainable. So I was living well below my means, just putting away money because I was like, I can't just jump to the next thing again. Like, I need to figure out like what I actually want. And that was like, I think I was saving for a year and a half. Every paycheck, I was putting like 40% of my paycheck away, like eating tofu and like just like, it was
Yeah.
wild. But I'm so glad I did it. That being said, if you're in a situation where it's like, okay, I don't like this, but I'm not going to lose my mind, right? Start looking for other things as soon as you have that reckoning with yourself. And again, just like set aside some time every day, even if you're not like crying. Like I would wake up and cry before I went to work sometimes. But even if you're not there, if you're like, I don't want to be doing this in a year, start planning a little bit, start doing a little bit of research. So maybe at 6 months, you feel a little bit more comfortable putting yourself out there, applying to jobs, making connections. But I think it's about really playing the long game because you don't want to get to a point where you're so miserable, you're crying every day.
Yeah.
And like, I was just in a position where I felt self-conscious about leaving jobs, and I would be like, no, you just have to stick this out. Like, you'll get promoted, or like, it'll get better. And a lot of the time it just doesn't. And that's why I'm so passionate about like telling people that if it sucks, like, get out, just
Yeah.
get out. Don't wait for things to change.
I totally agree with you. And it's something important to remember that you're so invested in this company, but they're not, invested the same way in you. But then you can feel this like guilt of like, oh no, I'm going to leave my team without, help and
Absolutely.
all these things. But you have to just
Absolutely.
realize your mental health, like your health in general, which can be affected by your mental health. If that's something that's
100%.
impacted by your job, like that's the first most important thing. And so I'm so glad that you say that. It so beautifully goes into our next question too, which we chatted about a little bit, but I'm just curious to hear why you say job hopping is actually one of the smartest things that you can do in your career. You touched on it a little bit, but I totally agree with you on this, but I'd love to hear your perspective.
Totally. Another thing I love talking about. I just want to be clear. I think that this is a great strategy early in your career. I'm a director now. I'm certainly not trying to hop around until
Right.
retirement. I really love ButcherBox. I love where I'm at. I hope to be there for like a super long time. But I would never have reached this point in my career if I didn't feel empowered to quit when I was younger. And I think part of that is just because like I'm stubborn. Like, I remember I would be like, Mom, I'm quitting my job. And she would be like, again? Like,
Yeah.
what? But it is often really hard to make that jump from coordinator to specialist, or specialist to a manager. And then once you reach that social media manager title, it becomes way harder to get to a director or a VP or anything like that. Like, it is so hard. And you sometimes feel like you're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And something we don't talk about also in relation to this work is like, it is really expensive to be alive. And we don't want to wait 2 or 3 years for like a whiff of upward mobility. Feeling stuck is the absolute worst. So personally, I've found the best way early on in my career to advance myself was to go after roles that were a bit more senior than where I currently was. And I think learning how to verbalize your skills that you're doing at your job, like, if you're a coordinator, right, and you're like, I want that social media manager role in 18 months, like, how do I get there? It is honestly just about being able to talk about what you're doing at your job and like how it applies to that other job. Like, I promise you, 90% of coordinators could do a social media manager's job. Like, it's just the titling is like such bullshit.
Yep.
But yeah, I think it's like, if you're early on in your career and you feel like you have to stick something out because staying will help you grow, it probably won't. Like, you should probably just go have a different experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm trying to think about all of my friends who are in the marketing world. I don't think I know a single person who has been at their job for like more than, I mean, I don't really want to say a number, but like probably more than 5 years. I don't know anybody at this
Oh
point.
my gosh, that is wild.
Yeah, I'm 28. I don't think I know any friend of mine that's been in marketing that's been at their job for like 5 years, since you are in college and just like,
Mm-hmm.
getting into your first job. I so many people that I know have done that, where they switch jobs and they kind of get exposure to all of these different industries too. So like, maybe you're not staying within the beauty space. Like, I started in the beauty space. Maybe you're going to a restaurant, maybe you're going to fashion, maybe you're doing all these things and you're learning along the way. And I think that's another really important thing. And you're learning like how different companies work. And I think that's another really important thing with job hopping. So completely agree with you. But I do want to talk a little bit about your time at Abercrombie and Fitch. That is one of my favorite brands. So just really excited to dive into your time there. You led the social media team there before starting at ButcherBox. Tell us a little bit about that. What are some of the leadership qualities and skills that you had to hone in order to be a good leader there?
Yeah. So Abercrombie A&F as a whole is kind of divided into two halves. There's like the Abercrombie and Fitch side, which is like Abercrombie and Abercrombie Kids. And then there's the teen side, which is like Hollister, Gilly Hicks, and then the brand that we launched with the D'Amelios, Social Tourist. I was team head of the teen side, which I think is just like so
That's
fun.
cool.
We had so much fun. Like, oh my God, it was just the best experience. But I'll say again, like I absolutely loved my time at A&F, and a big reason for that was the people. So from day one, I felt a real sense of community there. Like my boss was like, is just like the most incredible person, and I'm still so close with her. And when I got the opportunity to lead the team, which was honestly about 5 or 6 months after I joined the org, I was honestly really surprised. But what I always say is that I don't think I was promoted because I was like amazing at my job. I think I was promoted because like I prioritized interpersonal relationships at work above all else. So I wanted to be a good partner. I wanted to be a good person to work with. I wanted to get to know people beyond their work lives. And I think a big reason for that was because I was onboarded remotely. Abercrombie's in Ohio. I live in Boston, and I was like really concerned about feeling isolated. And it was like the most fun and most warm community I've ever had at any job, including all of the ones that I went into the office for. But then when that opportunity arose to like be team head at A&F, I think I had just spent a lot of my time focusing like less on results and more on like being someone that people wanted to work with. And I think that just like felt right to my bosses, because they were like, oh, well, like people already know her. They already like know how to work with her. She's well respected and like has good relationships with her peers. Like, why not? We'll promote internally, which is just like the best thing that anybody has ever done for me in my career. And I grew so much. So I would say like the first thing is like not taking your work too seriously. Like there are people who show up to meetings and they're like, this is what I want, this is what I need from you, deliver. As opposed to like approaching these interactions like, hey, like with creative, for example, like you're an expert, like this is how I'm envisioning it, but like I want to hear like what's on your plate. I don't want to overwhelm you with these asks. Like, how do you envision this coming to life? Like, let's merge our brains, right? And approaching things like that was just like my entire world changed when like people were receptive to that. And like it was just a collaboration and not like, oh, we're showing up to ask for a deliverable and tell someone exactly how we want it. And like it was just so much more fun. And I think to like be a good leader, you you have to look at it as like the people who report to you, your job is to make their life easier.
Mm-hmm.
That is your job as a boss, is to remove roadblocks, to ask how they're doing, to like make sure that they have the tools that they need to succeed, because they were hired because you thought they would do well at the job and you thought that they had an interesting perspective. So let them do the job and make it easy, right? um I think like I just believe in my core, like if you lead with like not being a dick, like if you're just like, I'm not going to be a dick, I have no reason to be, you're good.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, I
Like,
totally agree with you. We chatted a lot in, I think it was like season 2. We had our now friend Allie of Upwork on the podcast. We talked a lot about like leading with empathy in the workplace and just like feeling like, you know, putting aside work and just trying to connect with people on like a, you know, relationship basis, because that's what life's about. It's not about work, work, work. It's literally about like, let's go through this together. How do you feel empathy can make or break your team morale and performance?
yeah, so empathy is like, I don't necessarily think of empathy like in regards to performance at all. I think that empathy should be at the core of every interaction you have with another human being. At work, I think it's about viewing people as people first. Especially like right now, people are going through so much. Like I can't watch the news anymore. Like it impacts my day-to-day well-being. Like it's so hard to be a person right now.
Mm-hmm.
And like you should expect that that will impact how people show up at work. And I think just constructing an environment where people feel comfortable enough saying like, hey, I'm having a really hard day, I need to take some time, like that's what it's all about. Because once you give people the space to like be a person, they're more likely to just like be themselves and like give you their best when they can, and that's all you can ask for, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay, so you were promoted into your leadership role. Do you have any tips around promotions, growth within a company? You know, we talked a little bit about how a role in social can feel a little bit stagnant, especially if you're going from coordinator to manager or whatever, and then you reach that and you're like, what's next for me? Especially if you're at a company where the social media team is fairly new. I know that it's hard to like demonstrate why you would, need a promotion or be qualified for a promotion if like leadership has no idea what a higher position could be for you. So
Yeah.
how do you recommend someone who's kind of feeling stuck demonstrates their, I don't know, quote unquote worthiness for a promotion or kind of lays out that growth path for themselves?
Yeah, so there are a few things I definitely recommend. If you're not having regular one-on-ones with your boss, like get those on the calendar once a week. Like, I don't care how busy they say they are, like once a week, you should be checking in with your boss, even if it's only for 15 minutes. And then every 3 to 6 months, like you should have like a growth chat.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, oh, I want to be promoted, but like, what does my path to growing here look like? And if they don't have an answer for you, or if they don't come up with an answer for you, it's time to start thinking about, okay, what position do I need to put myself in to maybe get to a different place where people care about my growth and like they
Mm-hmm.
want me to stay. Um, because I think social, it's so easy, especially when you're at a smaller place, right? Or like you said, when the team is new, it's hard to show how much you're doing all day long, and it's so much.
Yeah.
Another thing I recommend is like if you're at kind of like a bigger place, um, doing monthly social recaps to just like show like, hey, here's what we did this month, like here's what worked well, like check it out. If you're at a smaller place, like track those metrics and things yourself, so when you have those meetings with your boss, you can be like, hey, like look what I did the last 3 months, like how do you envision me like growing here, and just like track things. I'm not saying keep like a detailed log of everything you do, but really doing that retrospective on like, here's what we accomplished in the last couple of months. Like, here's how things have changed since I got here. Um, and then if they're not receptive to that conversation, again, like that's when you need to start thinking about going somewhere else that actually gives a shit about your growth.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned the one-on-ones with your direct boss. What do you recommend those look like every week? Should your boss be laying out the agenda for that, or should you kind of come prepared with certain things to talk about? And what do you think that should look like?
I think it really depends on the spot, and I think it depends on how your boss is. I found like the first time I felt one-on-ones were valuable to me was when I landed at ANF, and I felt that because my boss, even if we didn't have anything to talk about, we would just talk about our lives, and I
Yeah.
got to know her and care for her, and like, vice versa. And I think, you know, just touching base on, oh, here's what I'm working on. So you're not like, so when they think of you, they're not like, oh my God, like, what are they doing?
Yeah.
Because as we know in social, like sometimes you work on something for a couple of weeks and like no one's seeing actually like a visual representation of your work. So just like saying, hey, like, here's what I'm doing this week. Like, is there anything I can help you with? Or like, does this sound good? Am I approaching this the right way? Like, that's more than enough. Just like making sure your boss is like in the loop on what you're doing can be like a make or break thing when it comes to your growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think that setting boundaries in your life and career is so important? I know we talked a lot about, your career is not your whole life, and when is it time to quit? And when, if you're mentally just not right at a moment, like it's time to put yourself first. But what do you think setting boundaries can do for you in your career?
You know, I think again, we need to acknowledge like we don't live to work. We work to live. Again, that's like still kind of a taboo thing to say, but if I won the lottery tomorrow, like I probably would take a 10-year break, right? Like I would probably focus on some things that like fill my cup in other ways.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like it's totally fine. I like my work. I love my team. I love where I am, but like I do it so I can live my life. And drawing those boundaries, I think, is a way to kind of let people know that, you have a life outside of work, and that life outside of work enables you to show up as your best self at work. If I didn't have my hobbies, if I was just responding to work messages all the time on Friday, and I'll say like ButcherBox is wonderful, like I don't get those messages. Like people really prioritize themselves outside of work, which was part of the reason why I wanted to join the company. Like they're so great about putting human beings first. Um, but like if you aren't able to like fill your cup outside of work, then you show up to work and you're not your
Drained.
best
Yeah.
self. You're not bringing everything that you could to the table. So like I I have, social often has like a social phone.
Mhm.
Um, and I feel so lucky that I have that because it enables me to like not have my work email on my personal phone. I don't have brand accounts on my personal phone. When I started at ANF, I said like, I know you said that you were going to send me a phone, and I just want to let you know, like, I'm not going to do anything on the accounts like until I get that phone because I just have a personal rule.
Yeah.
And they were like, we totally understand. That's great. And when your workplace is respectful of your boundaries, like that's a sign that you're in the right place, right? Um, but it can look different to everybody. Like maybe you have therapy on Thursdays and from 3 to 4 you're offline. Like that's a boundary. You don't respond from 3 to
Mhm.
4. Um, it's about making what's important to you in your life work for you in your job. Um, I think that's like the bottom line.
Oh, absolutely. So what are some of your hobbies then? I'm just curious.
Oh my gosh, amazing. I'm really, really into like health and wellness in like
Okay.
the worst, most annoying way. Like I'm always trying a supplement. Like I literally just ordered beef colostrum, like from
Oh,
the internet.
okay.
Again, like to help with my like COVID gut issues.
Yeah.
But my mom has a lot of autoimmune diseases. Like I have some, so we're like always trying like a new supplement or like
Yeah.
a new like workout routine. I love working out. I go to the gym a lot. Um, I have a cat. She's right here. Her name is Pickles.
Oh,
We rescued her.
pickles.
She was like found in a dumpster. So like I spent the last year like kind of rehabbing her because she was like,
Oh.
hurt when they found her. So she's been a big hobby, but she's like the light of my life. I have a shopping problem.
Yep. Don't we
Um,
all?
like bad, like reformation, like I just like take money from my paycheck and it just like goes straight to reformation. Like there's like no settling
Direct
time.
deposit. That's all it
Um,
is.
I'm a pay in four girly always. Like I'm
Oh
always
my
paying
gosh.
for.
Yeah.
And then we're also like redecorating our house. So my partner and I, our furniture is like so at odds. Like he has like a lot of dark wood. I have a lot of like light colored stuff. So we're spending like the next few months overhauling everything. So that is also fun. That's like a
That's
fun thing that we do.
That's awesome. I'm hearing a lot of getting offline, doing things with your hands, getting outside, taking care of an
100%.
animal. Like all these things are so great. So if anybody is out there wondering, I don't really have any hobbies outside of work, get an animal. I don't
Oh my
know.
God, buy a cookbook. We like
Yeah.
buy cookbooks and like cook through them. Like
Yes.
it's so fun. There's so many things that you can do. That's something I've been like talking about in therapy too, is like I feel like I don't have any like real hobbies. And
Yeah.
it is just like so easy really to just like try something new. And you can
Hmm.
always abandon it. You don't
Yeah.
need to like become amazing at your hobby. I think we like run into this thing where it's like, oh, you have a hobby, like you should monetize it. Like you
Yeah.
should get so good at it that you can like make content about it and monetize it. And like
It takes away the
that's not it.
joy, I feel like,
That's
from
not
it
it,
too.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. Do you have a favorite cookbook?
I really like the Molly Baz cookbook.
Yep. Love
What
her.
is it called? Cook This
Cook
Book.
this book, and then she now has a wine brand called Drink This Wine. I'm so
Oh,
excited
nice.
to try
Okay.
it.
Yeah, like this is like low key bad. She's not like my favorite human being, but her
Okay.
recipes are so good that I just set it aside.
Okay, Capri. So we talked a lot about career and just a lot about life in general. And I am loving this conversation. I gotta say, it's probably one of my favorite that we've had on the podcast so far. But I do want to go back just a little bit to some social media tips since you are kind of an expert here. During your time in social media, have you had to jump through a lot of hoops to get things approved? Why is that like something that worked or did not work? I've experienced that. So I'm just curious to hear your experience with that.
I'm laughing because it's like, oh my gosh, when you have to get all those approvals,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just like it makes the work so much worse. It's like you have this idea, and by the time it goes through all of those approvals, it's just been like mangled into something you're like
Yeah.
not even that proud of, which always sucks. Um, but like, yes, in the past, I have had to jump through a lot of hoops, and I've also been in places where I don't have to. It kind of like goes back to forming those interpersonal relationships that I was talking about. So if people who will be in your line of approval know what your strategy is and they know what's coming down the pipeline, I do find that like mitigates a lot of the back and forth if they understand what you're trying to accomplish from the jump. That being said, there are some places that are just really strict. There's
Yeah.
a lot of red tape. And if you find that that red tape is impacting the quality of the work, you have to have a conversation with your boss, you have to have a conversation with legal. And if they're not receptive, you either have to be okay with changing your strategy to like make it easier on your mental health,
Yeah.
or you're like, okay, like maybe I want to work at a place where I can be a little bit scrappier, where like people won't tell me I can't do this. It's all about like collecting those little bits of information to inform like what your next move may be. um but best social tips, I would say my favorite thing is to like use your audience as a focus group. I think that I've managed accounts with a lot of followers in the past. Like PUMA had tens of millions of followers. Like
Yeah.
Hollister had 6 million or something. I don't know. But like my favorite thing to do was just ask people like, do you like this in an
Yeah.
Instagram story? Or like, do you think this is funny? Or
Yeah.
like the open-ended question, like, oh, like what kind of tops do you want to see next season? Like, what do you feel like is missing from your closet? And these are the people you're trying to reach and trying to sell things to. So like asking them questions is just like such a no-brainer that I feel like people don't take advantage of.
Yeah, your audience on social is so valuable. And like people don't think about that. People just think, oh, post pretty things and like that'll draw people in and they'll buy from us. But it's like, no, you need to nurture and develop the relationship that you have with your following. And a great way to do that is exactly what you said with the like just honestly just polling them, being honest, asking for feedback. I think that's a huge thing. So I totally love that you said
Yeah,
that.
love it.
So you encourage being unhinged on social. I love that. Can you tell us more about that? We had Zaria from Duolingo on the podcast a while ago, and she was talking exactly about that, and just their perspective on social is so cool. So I just would love to hear yours too.
Yeah, so I saw a TikTok the other day that I think summed it up really well. And it was like Gen Z trying to explain to you that they would rather see your product run over by a car rather than watch a 3-minute educational video with royalty-free music. And
Yeah.
I think that sums it up really, really well. I do think it's less about like being unhinged for no reason or like the shock value of things. I think it's more like kind of looking behind the mask, right? And it's like, no, like I'm just like a young person running this account, and like I acknowledge that I'm just a young person running this account and I'm trying to have a good time, which resonates a lot more with people. Like once we posted this meme on the Hollister account that was like, I don't even remember what it was a picture of, but it said like, oh, I want this account to get so big that it starts a cult. And like that's what it said. It had no product on it. It had nothing. Like it was just something that Alex, bless him, like ripped from the internet. And like that, those kinds of things started performing so well for us. Like we found this scooter at ANF at the campus. There are Razor scooters everywhere, like for you to get around because the campus is so big.
Oh, wow.
And we found this Razor scooter that was like wrapped in denim. Um, and so someone took a picture of it and we put it on and it was like, "Hey babe, like new Juder just dropped." And it was like it was like a top performing post of like 2 years.
I love
And
it.
like just that kind of stuff really, like when you see how people react to it, you have to let it inform your content strategy. You can't just be like, "Oh, that's so funny that like that thing worked. Haha." You should run with that.
Yeah,
And
totally.
like the value of people engaging with your stuff, even if it's not like product focused, is honestly sometimes better, right? Like
Yeah.
it builds that brand love, like it makes you recognized for something. But yeah, I'm always an advocate for like being absolutely just unhinged. Like if you're not terrified to show something to leadership, like maybe rethink.
I love that so much. You know who does a really good job with that? We are based in Florida, so our airport is Tampa International Airport, and their social media, if you've never looked at it, you
Yes.
should. It's so funny. They do a great job at that.
I
So
feel like I'm seeing so many of like airports, libraries, like
museums, yeah,
parks, museums having like such good social
it's
and like
crazy.
they're nuts. Like
Yeah.
it's so funny.
What is your favorite social media platform? What would you say?
Probably Instagram
Okay.
because I'm like
Still, a lot of people are mad at it.
I mean, literally could be mad at anything right
Right.
now if I thought
Yeah.
about it too much. And like Instagram is like I'm a millennial, but I'm right on the cusp, right? I'm
Mhm.
like a
Same.
Gen Z millennial cusp. And Instagram, like, it was my first social media love.
Right.
And I'm really not gonna let it go. That being said, like I've had the most quote unquote success as like a creator on TikTok.
Mhm.
Um, I was like that was like my income stream when I was not working,
Oh,
was
wow.
like the TikTok creator fund or whatever. But I just like it's so hard and it takes so long. So like personally, I'm an Instagram girl. And I think at ButcherBox, like it just makes sense for us right now to like be more Instagram forward and like,
Sure.
hoping to build out our TikTok in the next year. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, like I'll always be an Instagram girly.
Yeah, no, I actually completely agree with you, which is why I asked because I get that question all the time. People are like, really? You still like Instagram the best? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's my little first love, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. It's just like I like the aesthetics of things. Like,
Same.
I don't know. I love like I'll spend hours on TikTok a day, but
Yeah.
like I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think I'm just having trouble letting go.
Yeah. Oh, I know how that is. All right. Well, we're reaching the end of our interview. This has been so great. Thank you again for joining us. This is awesome. And I feel like a lot of people get a lot of value out of this, which is something that we're always aiming for. So appreciate that. But we do love to ask this question on the show, which is, what do you know now that you wish you knew early on in your career? I know we talked a lot about things that you've learned along the way, but what's something else that kind of stands out you wish you knew earlier?
I feel like it would just be if something doesn't feel right to you in your gut at your job, you're right. Like,
Mhm.
you have to trust yourself and you have to trust that feeling, like, even if it's exactly what you thought you wanted, right? Like, my school in the marketing department, they really were like, "You wanna be at an agency, like, the goal is to be at an ad agency, like, at a big agency," and I landed that job and I was like, "I will love this," and I hated it. And, like, I was like, "No, like, I will like it. I will just
Yeah.
do it a little bit more and I will like it." And, like, if I had trusted my gut immediately, like, maybe I mean, I love where I am, but, maybe things would have been a little bit different. Maybe I would have, like, suffered a little bit less.
Yeah.
But just if you have that gut feeling, you should trust it. You're not insane for wanting to be treated like a person at your job. Like, if your boss is hitting you up on Friday night for something that's not completely catastrophic, that's not normal. And like again, I want to end with this, but like it's okay to quit. Like it's great. It's okay to say bye if it's not right.
Oh, totally agree. We could just end that right there. But I do want to let everybody know where they can find you, follow along with what you're up to, what ButcherBox is up to. I just listened to the How I Built This episode with the ButcherBox founder, and it was
Oh,
so
good. I
good.
listened
So
to it before I started and it like really helped me be like, oh, like this is a place that I like really want to be.
Yeah, so highly recommend anyone out there who likes podcasts. I'm sure you like them if you're listening to this, but go listen to that. And then let us know where people can follow along with what you're doing.
Yeah. Okay. So you can follow me on Instagram at Capri Like the Pants. You could follow me on TikTok at Julianne Moore Stan because I love
Nice.
Julianne Moore. And you should follow at butcher_box on Instagram and TikTok because we're about to do some really fun stuff.
Yes. Oh, so exciting. Thank you again for joining us. This really has been so great. I don't say this to everybody, but this is like one of my favorite conversations that we've had. So thank you.
Very cathartic. Like, this was great. It was so nice to meet you. Thank you.
I hope you love this week's interview with Capri as much as I did. To recap, here are a few steps you can take to avoid career resentment. Number 1, schedule weekly one-on-ones with your leader to build a relationship with them, discuss what you're doing well, and what you can improve upon. Number 2, set reminders to prepare monthly recaps of your achievements to show your boss what you've accomplished in the past month and what you're planning to do in the coming weeks. Number 3, if you haven't recently, sit down and assess your career. What do you like about it? What don't you like about it? Are you on the path to achieving your goals? Number 4, have a conversation with your boss about setting boundaries between you and your role. And number 5, discover what you like to do outside of work. Fill your cup with those hobbies and show up to work each day inspired and ready to perform. We're excited to see you next week for another Marketing Happy Hour conversation. Until then, visit our website at marketinghappyhr.com/newsletter to join our email list for additional content, job opportunities, and marketing tips. See you next time.